You are listening to episode 216 of the Peaceful Mind Podcast. Welcome to the Peaceful Mind Podcast, a place for creating the peace of mind you need to be the best mom you are created by God to be. If you want to bring more balance, more joy, and more peace to your motherhood, this is the place for you. I'm your host, certified life coach and Catholic mom, Danielle Thienel. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited for this episode today because I have a special guest, Chanelle Nielsen. And Chanelle has worked with moms for the last decade, helping them to find more joy and create habits that serve them in mom life. As a mom of 5, Chanelle knows that motherhood has its challenges, and while she's passionate about helping moms simplify so they can prioritize what matters and define success for themselves, she created Mom University to give moms the training, tools, and support for the most important job they will ever do. She is an author, podcaster, program creator, yogi, but most importantly, she is a wife and mother. Welcome, Chanelle, to the podcast.
Thank you, Danielle. So fun to be here.
What I'm most excited about is that you and I have very similar philosophies and missions in life, right? We are focused on helping moms, right?
Yes.
I say that I help moms have more peace, more joy, and balance, like all the things that we have going on in our lives. And you would say the same?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this part that you have created this kind of mom university that gives moms the training for this most important job that we'll ever do. Because how many times have we both either heard or said about how they didn't send us home from the hospital with that instruction book on how to handle everything that's kind of coming our way? So I would love for my listeners to be able to hear your perspective. I really think that you're going to have kind of like the same like iterations that I do, but hearing it from somebody else is always a really good thing. So how do you help moms know, how do moms, what do they need to know in order to do momming better, life better?
Yeah. So there are a few different things, right? Because there's so many different components to it. So obviously we need to be better parents. We want to know that interaction. How do we do that with our kids? We need to run a home. And then the other is personal. Like how do we help ourselves to grow into the best humans that we can be in this next level of our development? So there's a lot going into what really helps us to grow in motherhood. And for most of my work, I've focused on that third one, right? Which is really just moms as people. When I named my podcast back a long time ago, I almost called it that. Moms are people too. And I think we can relate to that, right? Because there is this loss of self that comes in motherhood. And that is a big focus of my work is growing and developing as a mom while you're doing all those other things for your kids.
Right. I love that you said that mom are people too. The way that I remind my moms is like, we are also human. Like, we kind of separate ourselves and think like this is that mom who should know it all, like the super mom, do everything. But I'm like, no, we're human, just like anybody else. But I love how you're putting it as a training. Why do moms need training? Because, we've kind of been doing this for a really long time.
Yeah.
So how is it that you're seeing now is where we need to look at it in this way is getting some kind of training help?
Yeah, I love this question because I think it speaks to where we're at as moms. We're a little hard on ourselves. Like, gosh, moms have been doing this since the beginning of time. Of course, we should have this figured out by now. But there are a couple things that I think make it specifically right now that we need extra help. But I would say it's been a struggle since the beginning of time, right? I don't think it was easy for any moms, and we all need that extra help. But in the past, we maybe had a little more help from our own mothers, like people stayed in the same town where they were raised and they had their mom there to help them, and their moms were helping with their kids and teaching them. Um, Additionally, there's like, we've got tech and we've got the world changing so fast, and we've got all these things that we're dealing with that other generations maybe didn't have to deal with. And the other thing is, we can look at some patterns and some ways that things were done in other generations and say, you know what? We want to do that different. We want to do that a little bit better. I think for you, being a coach, you understand this very well. And I'm sure you talk to your people about this all the time, right? We get to choose how we feel. I don't think that, a couple of generations ago, they were thinking that or learning that. It was
Right.
just like, this is how life is. Let's go out and dig in the field and grow some food so we can eat. We are very blessed to be able to have this next level of prosperity that allows us to think about these different things than just like survival. But in order to thrive with this, we do need a little extra help, because extra is being added on to what we need to deal with.
And what do you see when moms do apply, when you work with them, when you apply this training and you give them the support and tools that they need? What changes for them do you see, and changes for their families?
Yeah. So I think the very first thing that I see is this realization that it can be different. Because I think often it's just like, okay, well, this is the best I know how to do, and I'm just going along, and I only have 24 hours in a day, and this is what it is. And then as we work on being more intentional and kind of stepping back and like, wait, let's build this from the ground up and figure out what we want, and then add on to that and build onto that. It's a really different approach than just like, okay, all the balls are going to be thrown at me and I'm going to try to catch them as I go. And that's a really different way of looking at life and motherhood than taking a step back and building out the mom life that we want.
You just kind of triggered something that came into my email box this week, and I'm curious now on what you would think about this. This was a mom who, when asked how important it was for her to make the changes that she was like writing in to me about, that she wished was different about her mom life, she said that it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, her importance for her was about a 5. But this is the reason, is that she says that she knows that it would really be helpful to have like the help that, she was seeking, but it seems so unrealistic to her because she's in a phase of life where she's consumed by the demands of child rearing. And I just know that we run up to this in moms that say like, that sounds like what you're saying you can help me with, or what I can achieve. Like right now, I'm drowning. I'm juggling all these things. I can barely get a shower in the day. And it seems really unrealistic. What would you say to that?
Well, first, these are the kind of emails that get me excited. I'm assuming you're the same, right? You hear
Right.
this and you're like, oh yes, let's go there, because that is exactly those are the kind of moms that I love to help, because that's where I was. For me, you
Same.
mentioned that I have 5 kids when the first 4 were born in 6 years. So it was, I resonate with that word drowning. Like it was a lot. It was constant, pregnant, breastfeeding. And then once they were all born and, in my arms and under my feet, it was like I could not figure out how to do this, how to juggle it. And that goes back to the earlier thing that I was saying, the idea of taking a step back. Because when you're in that chaos, it does feel like, okay, well, how can I get a handle on this? All I can do is clean up this spilled milk and put this baby to bed and wipe this bottom and you're just so caught up in those things. And it does take that taking a step back and seeing the big picture to be able to figure out where that could come in. And for me, in my own journey, that started. So I'll just tell my story real quick, if
Yeah,
that's
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
So I had those 4 littles, and I was going along just, doing all that I could, but noticing that I was feeling pretty grumpy And, my husband worked a typical 9 to 5. He would come home and I would be trying to get dinner on the table and I would just be like, oh, take the kids and, frustrated,
Yes.
yelling a little at the kids. I'm not a big yeller, but at this point in my life, I had a short fuse because it was just frustration all the time. My level of what I could handle was at capacity. And so I don't think it took for me to wake up. I started having some physical symptoms. And so I went to the doctor and I'm like, what's going on? And he tested everything. And the only thing that came back out of whack was my cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And he's like, well, you're stressed. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Thanks. Like that I could have told you. And he said, well, you need to figure out a way to de-stress. And I was just so irritated at that doctor. He didn't know, but as I went home, I'm like, okay, well, how can I really do this? And I decided to get up before my kids, which felt like a big sacrifice at the time. But I just got up like 15 minutes early and started doing very slow, yoga and breath work. And that made a huge difference. What I noticed was like later on in the day, I felt better. At the dinner, I'm trying to make dinner, I was calmer. And I thought, okay, if that little thing, that little part of doing something for myself can make a big difference, what else could I do? What else could work out?
What a great question to ask yourself. Yeah.
It was because, right, it started to open up possibilities for me to see what else there was. And that was me in my most busiest season of life. And that changed everything for me to be able to have that little bit of time. And that little bit, I think more than the yoga, it was the brain capacity. It was having 15 minutes where no one was talking to me, where I didn't have to answer a bunch of questions, where I wasn't getting interrupted. That made a huge difference.
I think we were living parallel lives at the same time because
I think
that story is very similar to mine, becoming just like drowning, overwhelmed, excuse me, knowing something needed to change. But going back to, circle back to what the mindset is of the woman who wrote in, the mom who wrote in, how she's saying it just seems so unrealistic. This is where I get fired up because look at while you and I both in the midst of that kind of that overwhelming period of time, we actually took action then.
Yes.
It changed everything. But look at the mindset of this one particular mom. And I know that there's some other moms listening out there. This is where they want to delay. Well, later, then I'll get the training I need, the support I need. I'll go to one of these, mom retreat functions so that like a later time. Whereas I am passionate about telling moms like, no, don't wait while you have the littles and when you feel so overwhelmed and drowning in it. Don't wait till what happened to you, physical symptom, and what happened to me. My story is I also got physically sick and that caused me to be still and reevaluate everything. So it's like, now's the time because you're always going to be met with circumstances and situations as our kids get older, right? Now, you know that it's never ending. That if you can, like, if it was going to be realistic for you to make a change, take the time for yourself. That's like, ask yourself a really good question like you did, like, what else could I do to, support myself? It's just amazing why moms want to wait till later to do that. Do you find that is with yours as well?
Totally. And I think it's because we make it this big thing. It's like we're so overwhelmed with what's going on. We think that the answer is something big, right? We think like, oh, the only way I'm going to get what I need is if I had a month to just recover and sleep and, just whatever. And the reality is the smaller we can make that thing that we do, the better. If we can break that down to like, well, what's a habit that I could have? What's something tiny that I could do every single day that would make a difference? And to your earlier point, obviously, I am hosting Mom University, which I know we'll talk about later, but that is a time to get out of the day-to-day so you can think about these things. Because when you're in it, right, and everything's coming at you, it can be very hard to have that mental space to even say, what do I need? And to even answer that question. But getting to that point, and maybe you can't get away to do that. Maybe it is your husband takes the kids for a half an hour and you go out into nature and you just sit and journal and you say, what is it that I need? What could I do regularly so that I could just get a little handle on my mom life? The smaller that answer is, the more likely you're going to do it. And I think that's what holds us back, because to your earlier, the email that this woman wrote, if she thought like the answer was just 10 minutes to myself a day, she could probably wrap her mind around that, right? But I think that what most of us think is an hour or two to build a business or start a podcast or write a book or these big things that we want to do. And that feels like, well, no way. I can't even take a shower some days. I can't even there's dishes in the sink. There's laundry in the laundry room. Like, how can I possibly add one more thing? And the answer is, if you add one tiny thing that makes a huge difference, everything else is going to feel better.
I love it. I love that that's like such a golden nugget, and that somebody listening to this really could just take that from this podcast and run with it. One tiny little habit change a day can make a huge, big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. So another way to help them see how they could take action on this is you and I both, we each have a method, right? So mine is called the Cyclone Mom Method and yours is called the Mom's Method. Would you tell my listeners more about what that is and just maybe how that helps them in all their areas of motherhood?
Yeah. So the Mom's Method helps to make mom life feel a little bit simpler and definitely more intentional. It goes right along with what we've been talking about. So it's an acronym. It stands for manifestation, organization, mobilization, simplification. So I can go through each of those. Manifestation, I wish it was a different word, because I really, like you, Danielle, it's a godly type of manifestation.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm throwing God out of it and it's a universe woo-woo kind of thing. However, it's my belief that God also operates under universal laws. And so manifestation, I believe that there is, when we really want something and we put that out there, that's what we're doing with prayer, right? We're praying and we're saying, this is what I want. And if God in his wisdom deems that to be best, I believe he'll give it to us. And so that is, in a nutshell, what manifestation is. But when I'm working with women, manifestation is getting really clear on what that thing is, on what you want, because often we aren't clear. We just say, oh, this is so hard. Help me. When a much better approach is to say, I would love to have this and this. I would love for my life to be a little bit smoother. I would love to feel more joyful at the end of the day. And here's what that would look like. That would look like having the time to read with my kids, having a peaceful bedtime with them as I tuck them in and read them a Bible story or whatever that is, right? That is when we get really clear on what we want it to look like, things set in motion to make that happen. And it also gives us hope, because we're like, oh, that, instead of thinking, help me, this is so hard, where we're focusing on the hard, we start to see a picture of what can be.
Yes, clarifying your goals is one of my steps as well. But I do see that it seems like it's so easy and simple, and it's something that you could just come up with in your mind. But really, when you stop, and I know that when I'm working with my clients, really what you'll find is that you might think that you're doing it, but you're actually not. And then when I ask that question, like, what would you want to have happen in your life? It's often I met with I don't know. I haven't really stopped and take the time to ask myself that. And I think that's what both of us are asking. Yeah. That is going to be so beneficial. It's a little bit more than just that goal setting. It's really taking the time, being intentional, and really asking yourself for your inner wisdom of what that, like, play with possibility. So I love that. Okay. That was the first step. How about the organization?
Yeah. So just one quick thing on what you said, because so often, same thing with me, when I say, what do you want? People don't know. And it's like, but allowing yourself to dream is really that first step. Just dream, imagine what could be, even without going to goal setting yet. because sometimes that stops us. We want to dream and then we're like, oh, but how? And then we don't know how. And then we just say, forget it. So O is where the goal setting comes in. So manifestation, we let ourselves dream. Organization is where we go, okay, so if I want to be able to tuck my kids in every night and I want to have time for a bedtime story and a scripture story, whatever, what needs to happen in order for that to happen? What are the goals? What are the signposts that are going to help me know I got there? And so it's really breaking down on the big picture, what needs to happen in a year? What needs to happen in a month? What needs to happen in a week? What needs to happen in a day? And I like those only to be maximum of three things in a year, 3 things in a month, and then 3 things in a day. This is really hard for the people I work with because if, they, like me, want to do it all. And we have this to-do list of 25 things that we think we're going to somehow get to in a day. And what ends up happening is we don't always prioritize, right? We say, oh, I want to get all these things done, but maybe number 25 isn't as important as number 2, but 25 is easier. So we do 25, but we miss the mark on what's really important. When you are getting specific and you're saying, these are the 3 things that matter today, if you let the rest of your to-do list go, it's going to be okay because you got those big rocks in. You got in the thing that matters. So that's what organization is really all about.
And where I see this happening is that, and I get it. I get that we were over before you become your moms, like we're overachievers. We accomplished so much in a day. And then we think that we're still that person when we're taking care of several more human beings in our lives. But it's this idea of making this list of 20 things and then only getting, let's say, 4 or 5 done that day. And what we do is we look at the gap of what wasn't done and we feel terrible at the end of the day. And we think that we're behind and we start getting mad at the amount of time we have and things like that. I want to shift that perspective to be like, how about like you're suggesting you have a list of 3 things, and then you get all 3 accomplished and then celebrate yourself and feel amazing for getting those things done. And then in that good feeling, if you want to take that on to add a few more things from that good feeling, why don't we do that instead of overshooting?
Yeah. And that's so good because yes, that's exactly it. You feel accomplished. You feel like I got it done. And anything beyond those 3 is a bonus.
Right.
But it's all a win versus exactly what you said, where we're always feeling behind. And we already feel that enough as a mom.
Yeah. Notice how that's the internal shift.
Yeah.
Right. First of thinking that it would be amazing to get 3 things done. Right. Okay.
Totally.
So we have, what's next in the method?
Okay, so the next M is mobilization. So mobilization means actually taking action. So you figure out, okay, what are the 3 most important things for me to do today? And then you do them. And the best way to get things done is through habit. So I love to teach people the tiny habit method from BJ Fogg, which is trigger, tiny habit, reward. And anything that you want to do regularly, I recommend starting this. So let's say you want to start a habit of going out for a run every day. Most of us will say, okay, I want to start going for a run and I'm so excited. So I'm going to go run 5 miles and that's what I'm going to do every day. And that's going to be my habit. And then day 2, you're like, okay, I'm a little sore. I don't want to do this as much. And day 3, maybe you skip it and the habit never takes. I mean, that's why New Year's resolution have become something of a joke, right?
Right.
So instead, what we want to do is break that habit down. So say the habit is running. Your tiny habit is the thing that's going to get you there. So maybe it is putting on your running shoes. Maybe it's stepping out onto the front porch. It's something that tiny. So the trigger is something you're already doing. Maybe you're going to do this first thing in the morning. I wake up, I put on my running shoes, and I step on the front porch. As soon as you've done that part of the habit, you celebrate. You say, yes, or you literally pat yourself on the back, or you do a little dance, or whatever it is that makes you feel like, yes, I did it. That's the hardest part for people because they're like, but I didn't really do what I wanted to do yet. I'm going to celebrate after the 5 miles. But we want to work with our brains. And what happens is when we celebrate that little tiny thing tomorrow, when we get up and we have that trigger again, our brain goes, Oh, remember how good we felt yesterday when we got out on the porch? Let's put our running shoes on and go out to the porch again. And our brain helps us to be able to do that thing again. And then it becomes a habit. And once we're already out on the porch in our running shoes, it's not that big of a stretch to just take off down the block. And, maybe we're not making it the 5 miles every day, but it's something that we can build on. But that's going to build momentum when we start with a tiny habit. So mobilization is just doing that littlest part that helps us to keep on going.
I love it. And I also love the last word in your method acronym. This is one of my favorite words, simplification.
Yes. So simplification, cutting out the stuff that doesn't serve us. We've already talked about it a little, right? If we have this big, long to-do list, we need to cut that down to what's the priority. But this is also getting really intentional. We need to look at, okay, am I cleaning up the same broken toys every single day? Maybe I need to go through the toys and get rid of them. Am I spending hours trying to decide what to wear because I hate all the clothes in my closet and none of them look quite right? Let's get rid of them. Let's simplify the stuff. Let's simplify our schedule. If we find that we are in the car all day long, driving kids everywhere, that's not conducive to all these other things that we've talked about. So what can we let go of? What can we delegate? What can we simplify and take off our plate to make all of these other things work? Because that's kind of the glue. We've got to give ourselves margin. We've got to give ourselves space, and getting rid of all of those other things that aren't serving us and allowing us to do that is a big piece of that.
I love this method. So just as a reminder, it's the MOMS method, manifestation, organization, mobilization, simplification. So
Yeah.
good. And now I want to let our listeners know about that you have taken. I'm assuming this method is a main part of Mom University, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you have decided to offer for moms out there a weekend retreat, a training per se that I want you to tell, to talk about and tell us what that would be like, where they can have a chance to dive deeper into all that we've talked about on the episode today. And then also can't help but mention that I also will be attending this.
Yay. Yeah.
Yes, as a speaker on a panel. So I cannot wait to be a part of this. And I'm going in two forms. Yes, I'm coming to also be a speaker. So I would love to meet any of my listeners who can make it, but I'm also going with the mindset of I'm a mom who also needs more training, always can get better at it. And the idea that it's a trip away for me too, all of it just wrapped. I'm so excited to interact with other moms. So go ahead and tell us about Mom University and again, like the method that you just talked about. That's kind of like
Yeah.
the basis.
Yeah. Okay. So I am just thrilled for this event. We have gathered some amazing women to learn from, and how the mom method fits into all of that is, to me, it's really a method of implementation, right? So we're going to have some awesome speakers, but what we're going to do is, so before the talk on parenting, we're going to use this method, manifestation. What do I want my parenting to look like? We're going to take just a minute and what do I want that to look like and write it down. Then we're going to hear about parenting. Then we're going to do the organization. Okay, well, what are my goals from this talk? Awesome. And mobilization. When I go home, I am going to do what? And then finally, what do I need to simplify or get rid of so that this can happen? So to me, the mom's method is how you take everything from this weekend home and you put it into practice, because it can be really difficult sometimes when you go to an event or you get all this learning and you're like, yes, this is so awesome. I want to do it all. And then just like we talked about with the email earlier, I want this, but you know what? It's too hard right now. I'm going to do that later. And so what I really want for people is to be able to do it now. And the way you do that is by breaking it down. And so this event is going to have speakers on parenting. We have amazing experts on parenting, on running a home. Like this is something that for me, I feel like was just like, well, good luck. Whatever your mom
Right.
taught you, you have, and maybe she did teach you well, and maybe she didn't, and you just got to try to figure it out. So actually cleaning, meal planning, laundry, all of that kind of stuff. Time management as a mom. That's a big one. And then we're having someone talk about goal setting and specifically like, okay, we're going to figure out how to do parenting better, how to run our home better. And then once we kind of feel like those are in place, we're going to create some space so that we can take care of us because now that we know, okay, our home's going to run well, we're going to take care of our children. We don't have to worry that, oh, taking some time for me is going to ruin my kids, right? It's this lovely, holistic way of having all of those things. And it really is training for our job as a mom, training for the most important job that we do. We get training in every aspect of life, right? And then when you become a mom, you maybe read some books, you maybe watch some videos, but they just hand you this baby and it's like, good luck. And if you're anything like me, I learned a lot about babies when I was pregnant. Like, oh, I'm going to have a baby. And then you are consumed with the baby and the rest of life just kind of happens without you
Baby
getting
grows
trained
up.
on it. Yeah, exactly. And we're just winging it. And so I love that I am able to bring this to women to say, hey, here's help for the next 18 years and beyond, because there are so many things that we can learn and do better at in motherhood.
So before, well, let me when I'm listening to you, of course, I'm totally on board for all of it. There's no, with my work and coaching and has transformed my life, I have the total core belief that these kind of things are so important because moms, we are the center of our families. And, when mom isn't doing well and mom isn't happy and mom, like the whole family is affected that way. So I know I don't need convincing that this is the way to have the support, some guidance, some training, some community with other moms, that this is the way to show up more effectively in your mom life. But I know that there's some listeners who what their mind is saying on why I can't do that and what their objections and kind of hurdles that can you kind of address what you also know what might be coming up for moms, but saying, oh, that sounds real nice, but that's
Yeah.
not for me.
There are a few. One is like, but I'm running things at home. How can I ever get away? Right. And it's going to take a little bit of logistics of getting your friend or your sister or whoever or your husband to handle all the carpools and do all those things so that you can step away. And yet I want you to think if there was this amazing event for your child, you would move heaven and earth to make that happen because you'd be like, oh, but she's in the soccer semifinals and I need to go with her. And so I am going to do this for her. This actually is for your kids. Anything you do in personal development as a mom is going to make your family better, your home life better, your marriage better. It's going to change everything in your home. And I think that sometimes we don't quite understand that.
I just have to interrupt you to say amen to all of that. Amen on changing it all.
Yeah, it's true though, right? Because we think, oh, if I go have a weekend and it's in beautiful San Diego and I'm going to be having fun and meeting other moms, I don't need that. That's selfish, right? But in all reality, if you look at what the ripple effect it's going to have on your family, think about it the way that you would think about doing something for your children, because ultimately that is what you're doing. You just get to have a great time in the process. Also, meet mom friends, eat good food, get all the swag and the fun stuff of the event. But ultimately, who is this helping? Everyone that your life touches.
I love it. Okay. So I also do know that there are going to be some circumstances where moms cannot go. And you have provided, there's going to be in the show notes here, I'm going to have where you go to universityformoms.com for more information. But you also do have something available for my listeners who won't be able to make that kind of training, but can get some mom training from you. And so can you just tell us a little bit about the Simplify Toolbox?
Yes. So if you go to universityformoms.com and scroll down to the bottom, you can get this just for visiting that page. This is a program that I used to sell for $297, and I'm giving it away as part of Mom University. And what it is is a toolbox that helps you to really get a handle on all of the things that we do and to create habits around them. So if laundry feels really big and just overwhelming, as we break it down into what are the habits that need to happen? When am I going to do this? Where am I going to do this? And get intentional. So it's things like laundry and cleaning and meal prep and connecting with our kids, stuff like that, that we want to do, but sometimes we don't have a system for. That is one of the things that I am good at, is creating systems and helping to break things down so that they become a lot more simpler instead of this overwhelming noise in our head.
So thank you for giving that to our listeners. Well, Chanelle, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Danielle. So good to be here.
All right, everyone. I'm so glad you were here. Definitely visit the show notes for information on more on Mom University. And until next week, I wish you peace always. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Peaceful Mind podcast. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you could subscribe and leave a review. It not only supports the podcast, but ensures you don't miss out on future episodes packed with insights and tools to create peace of mind in your busy mom life. And if you're of the Catholic faith like me or any Christian mom seeking to feel better in any area of your life and to show up more calm, connected, and confident, I can help. Become an empowered mom who knows how to bring about the changes you desire, no matter the circumstances. Whether you need one-on-one guidance to get there, prefer a group coaching program with like-minded women, or a self-study course, I've got you covered. Explore my private one-on-one packages, join my Busy to Balance group life coaching program, or delve into my signature course, Divine Time. To find out which path is right for you, let's meet and see what's the best fit. Schedule a free call with me at daniellethienel.com or send me a direct message on Facebook or Instagram at Danielle Thienel Coaching. And also, don't forget to get your copy of my book, The Cyclone Mom Method: How to Call on Your God-Given Power to Remain Calm, in control, and confident as a busy mom. Dive into the digital and bonus audio version when you go to book.daniellethienel.com/new-book. You'll find all the details in the show notes too. Until next time, peace be with you always.